one of Al Unser Jr. By the way, an interesting announcement this week. We've been waiting the arrival of Porsche into the IndyCar racing. They're making a Porsche chassis, a Porsche-powered machine. It'll make its debut in the IndyCars at Nazareth, Pennsylvania, that new race there. And the driver will be little Al's father. Al Unser Jr. has been nominated to drive the rest of the season.
Al Unser Sr. going to drive the Porsche. Old Al, as I call him, instead of young Al.
All right, we take a look here at Al Unser. This is the senior Unser, the four-time Indianapolis champion. He is in car number 4, normally belonging to Roberto Guerrero. We mentioned the Guerrero situation, his injury in his practice accident. But the other story, of course, is that Al Unser was scheduled to drive the Porsche here. It was to make its debut, brand new engine, brand new car. Now they say it's not really ready to run until Laguna Seca. It was here at the track. Everybody got a good look at it. Already it has been pulled away. They'll get some testing done, and then Al Unser will move from this car to the Porsche. There is
and, of course, the other major story here this weekend is the debut of the IndyCar Porsche. For more on that story, let's go to one of two pit reporters for the afternoon. Here is Gary Lee.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon. The first car on the starting grid was the Quaker State Porsche IndyCar. Now, this is the first single-seater the German manufacturer has produced since 1962, their Formula One car. Porsche was committed to test this car under race conditions this season. In fact, this car did not arrive in America until this week. It was tested at Portland before being shipped down here to Monterey. And there are some growing pains. It's a brand new project, a new chassis, a new 2.65-liter turbocharged engine, and a new gearbox. Growing pains? Well, the car is not handling. They want more downforce. But if anybody can get the most out of an IndyCar, it's the four-time Indy champion Al Unser Sr. He starts from near the back of the pack in the Porsche IndyCar. Also working with us today in the pit area, talking about a driver who has come back after a sabbatical from IndyCar racing, is our colleague Larry Nuber. Race.
Look at Michael Andretti, just absolutely furious with himself. And there is the Porsche. The Quaker State Porsche, driven by Al Unser, is coming to a stop on the main straightaway.
Well, of course, the Porsche is the car that everybody thought would just come in and absolutely dominate IndyCar racing, just as they have done in sports car racing. But, of course, IndyCar racing is a very different state of health to sports car racing. I don't think they're going to dominate this sort of racing, at least for a long time yet. It's going to take them a lot of time to get that car sorted out. But they will. I mean, Porsche are very, very committed, if nothing else, to racing.
That Gary got apparently was correct. They're thinking it's a fuel management or a fuel pickup problem. Right after the car went out on the course, it stalled again. Now we're looking at the Porsche car that has stalled for the second time. We are guessing electronics. That's what it seems like for this car. Now, obviously, Al Unser Sr. wants to stay out. He had an option of going behind the pit wall or back onto pit road. He made a hard right-hander. Now he's coasting back toward the pit stall, and Al Unser Sr. wants to keep racing.
Lee is with Al Holbert to give us information on the Porsche.
Al, you want to test the car in a race situation. Obviously, you can't test the car in the pit area. What's the problem?
It appears we've got a water leak out of the water pump. It's not determined whether it's the engine itself or just the pump, but it can't be repaired.
Obviously, very frustrating, very disappointing. But I know for you, you said earlier you'd love to be in a driving suit out here today in this race car and not just the manager of this program.
Well, we have the best guy to do it right now, and Al's done a wonderful job for us for a Quaker State car, and that's unfortunate. We wanted to run every lap. We've run 140 laps of practice, which is probably more than anyone else, and the idea was to test, but we just have to do it again.
Well, we'll try to get Al, if we can get from one Al to another Al. Al Unser? Al? We can step over here and collect him before he runs away from us. Al? Well, obviously a lot of Al, can we catch you here? Well, obviously Al is not wanting to talk to anyone, helmet in hand, and he walks away in disgusting manner. A frustrated driver as Al Unser Sr. walks away, the Porsche dead in the pit area.
So we have answered a couple of stories already. Michael Andretti's chances of moving by Bobby Rahal and capturing the championship gone, and now the Porsche IndyCar has dropped out of the race. With our Larry Nuber.
It was one of the headline stories of today. Right now, Al was watching son Al Jr. out there racing. I know it was a frustrating weekend. Well, what about your thoughts just off the top of your head?
Well, it was a hard weekend. It's one of those weeks that you wonder why it all happens. But But you know, when you take a new car like this and a new team and you start out like we did, it's going to be hard. It doesn't make any difference, and that's what makes racing so great as it is the good times versus the bad times.
Al, at once I was admiring the fact they started out with a clean sheet of paper. That was not a clone of a Lola or a March, but on the other hand, they did a lot of things that are almost revolutionary. Do you have a feel, did they go the wrong direction, or is it just a matter of finding the right setup?
Well, I think somewhat they've gone the wrong way. Now, whether they have or not, I'm not a designer and I'm not an aerodynamics man or anything else, so I really can't say. In other words, the car should have, I think, been a little bit better out of the box.
Most of the cars, you can see, have their rain tires on. Notable by its absence in this field is the Porsche. The Porsche car failed to qualify for the start of this race. So we're set, we're ready to go. We have 1 lap to go to the pace lap. We mentioned at the start of the race, conspicuous by its absence in this field is the Porsche, a car that really many people expected a great deal out of. So let's go back and recount the struggle of the Porsche IndyCar.
The racing community was excited when Porsche unveiled its first entry into IndyCar racing. At last, the British-dominated chassis of March, Lola, and Penske were challenged by a highly respected German manufacturer. Porsche had long established itself as a winner in endurance racing. Now, if Porsche could succeed in the IndyCars, it was the hope that other European car manufacturers would follow. And who better to debut this new machine than 4-time Indianapolis 500 winner Al Unser? But the smiles and speculation quickly faded. After months of design changes and testing in Germany, Porsche made its American debut at Laguna Seca. The curiosity and publicity were there, but not the rave reviews. In fact, one of the biggest critics was Al himself.
Like you said, everybody has got a lot of saying that Porsche is going to come over and just ruin auto racing. Well, they can't. They won't. It's a hard business over here. It's not easy. The kart racing and Indy type racing is hard. It's strong competition, and to come over and dominate, they won't do it, but they will be strong.
The main criticism of the car was that the chassis design was old and not in keeping with the latest thinking. There were gearing problems, a lack of downforce. Chassis number 001 seemed more massive than other Indy cars. All the pride and tradition behind this German design were not enough to make that Porsche competitive. The machine started at the back of the pack and was the first car out of the race with fuel pump problems. In fact, the only good thing about Porsche's debut was that it was over. Al Holbert of the Porsche team responded philosophically. He said that Laguna Seca and Miami were testing grounds for the new machine, and that Porsche experts expected to start next season highly competitive. The driver most often cited as the regular for this machine in 1988 is Mario Andretti. But in light of the car's initial problems, Mario may now be having second thoughts.
10 years ago, I probably would have thought nothing of embarking on a brand new program, and then just with a hope that, of course, it's going to come together sooner or later. But right now, it can't be later. It's got to be sooner if I embark on a new program. So that is the definite difference. I have to try to make the rest of my years count, and I will do everything possible in the decision that I make to make that happen.
Al Unser and Porsche went separate ways, and the president of Porsche Racing North America, Al Holbert, took over the car, but still it performed poorly and did not qualify.
And the bottom line is we just we ran out of time, and traditionally Porsche likes to test before they even go to a racetrack, but there wasn't time to do that. But we felt the need to appear, not only for Quaker State, but for our own edification was much more important than the status of the car.
So Porsche now has a winter of work before they return to IndyCar racing when the season opens at Phoenix next April. We're looking at in there. We watch Teo Fabi. That is a March. It is powered by a Porsche. Last-minute decision to change the chassis get the engine some testing, and hopefully get the Porsche chassis working. It is not working properly yet. It currently runs in 13th place, but it is really an excellent job by Teo Fabi that got the car here. Let's take an opportunity to take a look at the saga of the Porsche.
The lifeblood of the Porsche company is racing. When they win, and Porsche usually does win, sales boom. To boost their U.S. market, an assault on IndyCar racing was begun last fall. But the car has been slow, and Porsche management has had to admit they have a problem.
Before you can solve a problem, you have to understand the problem, and that's the phase that we're in right now, I believe. In addition to that, I think people have to realize that this series is absolutely one of the most competitive sporting events in the world. And you just, no matter who you are, you just don't waltz in and take the cake.
No team in IndyCar racing builds both their own chassis and engine, yet this is what Porsche, ambitious and proud, chose to do. After the car's disappointing debut, they dug in for a winter of testing. After courting Al Unser and Mario Andretti, they signed ex-Formula One driver Teo Fabi. They swallowed their pride and bought a March chassis. Just yesterday, Fabi, in the March, qualified a decent ninth, but still, you had to wonder, had Porsche just plain underestimated the Indy scene?
The answer is yes, they do underestimate the American ingenuity and stick-to-itiveness and the difficulty, the uniqueness of the racing.
Think of this brand new machine. Yesterday, during a quiet moment, we had a chance to talk with them about it and found out what they thought of the Porsche effort.
They're a great addition. Technically, I think they add an incredible amount of interest. And at the moment, they're feeling their way around. They just don't want to go out there and just copy anyone else.
The more car manufacturers involved, it might get a few more people in Detroit off their backsides and get involved in a great form of racing in the United States.
I'm sure they'll be very tough. I think this year they may have a little bit of a hard time. You know, they're new to it completely. But I bet within maybe next year, even 2 years at the most, they'll be definitely front runners.
Well, I think they've got their work cut out for them, and I think anybody that gets into this sport's going to have their work cut out for them. I think it's, you know, it's a lot more competitive than a lot of them realize.
Porsche is definitely, you know, they're having their problems. I think they're having a big learning curve because, as you know, they've never really had an open-wheel car, so everything's new to them.
If you look at the technological capacity that they have and the resources that they have, that for anyone to think that this is going to be a disaster, I think, is fooling themselves.
Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, there's former Formula One driver Teo Fabi, who has moved back over to the IndyCar scene this year. He's already qualified for the race. And we talked about how the Penske chassis are dominating the activity here at the Speedway, and I think you can say the same about McLaren in Formula One. And, of course, David is our expert commentator on the Formula One telecast here on ESPN.
Well, I'll shortly be redundant, I would think, if the way McLarens keep running today, like they did again today. Alan Prost won. I didn't watch the telecast as it was on a foreign network, but Alan Prost won again, which makes his 30th Grand Prix win. I gather he had a pretty easy win, but prior to him winning it, his teammate Ayrton Senna had something like a 50-second lead over Alan Prost himself. So again, just as they did at Imola just 2 weeks ago, they're absolutely dominated proceedings today in the streets of Monte Carlo, a circuit where everybody thought that the normally aspirated engines might have a bit of a chance with pickup and so on, but it looks like the McLaren Hondas are really going to absolutely dominate Formula One in 1988. And it'll be interesting to see if they can, in fact, win all of the races. There seems to be no reason why they shouldn't.
We talked about innovations in our last segment, and here certainly is a team that wanted to come up with some kind of a major innovation with a Porsche engine and a Porsche chassis. They're running the Porsche engine, but it's in a March chassis here at the Speedway. And when you talk about innovators, you think of one person, Smokey Unick. He's with Gary Lee.
Well, Smokey, when we think about Chevrolet situation that has affected the pits. A few moments ago, Teo Fabi.
Fabi in the Porsche engine car, of course.
Oh, look at that. A wheel. Ooh. Dangerous situation here. That wheel carries a great deal of inertia. Fortunately, it stopped right there. But what I don't understand is the new rules require that all these wheels are locked on the cars. Now, that was coming right off the pit stop itself. Perhaps the lock just didn't engage.
Well, we haven't seen that yet. Most likely it wasn't just that the wheel nut was left loose. It's probably going to be that something broke right on the outside part and the whole hub came off.
So the Porsche-powered machine of Teo Fabi, it is a march. They push it back to the pits, and perhaps they can get it back into the competition.
We talked in the opening that there have been some problems and can be problems on this racetrack, and the car cam is aboard the number 8 car. That is Teo Fabi's car, and he had some problems on Friday.
Yes, he did. He had one of those unfortunate things happen in qualifying that you don't like to have happen. He made contact with the wall. Here, you see his car wobble on this replay. It comes around, he does the 360, slams into the wall, and it's all over. Fortunately for Teo on this particular thing, he was coming down to take the green flag. He almost makes the start-finish line here, and it stops just in time to save him that lap.
So it didn't count, right?
Right.
Tony Benton
and Brian Hammonds.
Al Holbert, the team manager for Porsche, you have to be extremely pleased. 4th place, your best finish ever.
We're very pleased. The fact is now I think that our driver can have confidence in the team, and we can start to see what he's made of.
You just came back from Germany with some good news, didn't you?
Sort of. I think you would say that. I'm a sports car fan, as you know, but the fact is our Quaker State Indy program has been given the top priority with a commitment for the next few years that should really bring our effort up to the top where it belongs.
Porsche trying to climb near the top of IndyCar racing. Paul?
The race.
So we have a lot going on here this afternoon, but there may be a problem for Danny Sullivan winning that championship because they've had a change in management at the very top of the team. Johnny Rutherford, what might that mean for Danny Sullivan?
Well, of course, Derek Walker, who has been a longtime team manager for Roger Penske, suddenly made a move effectively to the Porsche camp, and he's over there rendering them aid and putting the show together for the Porsche team. Karl Keinhofer has moved up from Penske's camp. He's Roger Penske's longtime engine builder. He stepped into the reins. He has been team manager before, so it's nothing new to him. And there were a lot of people that thought it would really mess up the Penske camp, really cause them a problem. Not so. From what I've seen talking to Karl and to Roger, everything is business as usual. They're moving right along, didn't even miss a step. The fact is, Derek Walker moving to the Porsche camp certainly will help them.
And it's the 1-year anniversary for the Porsche team. It was debuted a year ago here at this racetrack. For more on that story and how the car stands as we begin today's competition, let's go to pit road. Here is Gary Lee.
Well, thank you, Bob, and John, good afternoon. But Derek Walker says, don't talk about me. It is a team effort. Indeed, the team is working with saddened hearts, a lot of emotional stress, but they're getting the job done. The Quaker State Porsche carries the black and gold number 14 right here in front of the cockpit. All the crew members have a black and gold number 14 right here in memory of Al Holbert. That was his personal number at IMSA, where he won 5 GT championships. It also serves notice that Porsche will continue to strive for the goals that he set. Now, the debut last year was not too spectacular, but I have to believe Al Holbert would be proud of this effort this weekend. Teo Fabi in the Porsche Quaker State car starts outside the 4th row in the 8th position.
Look at it once again. Teo Fabi losing control in corner number 2 as they went into that area of the track for the first time.
This is the one thing the drivers expressed, is being able to get in there just right, because you can see him, he just got out a little wide, jumped in the throttle to try to make it go, and it's slippery out there. It's not down low where everybody has been running, so he lost traction, spun the car out.
One very interesting...
To look at this and see exactly what happened. You can see the engine blowing there on Rocky Moran's number 56, and he's really laying down a path of oil, and there we have a fire, an oil fire out the back of the car. He has painted that turn, and you can see the oil strip. It's very right there. We'll see the cars coming around, getting out of control. There was nothing they could do. There's one of the cars spinning in the oil. It's very, very disheartening to come around and to suddenly be helpless. And here we see Teo Fabi entering that turn, not being able to see the oil for the cars close. He gets out of position. There's Howdy Holmes spinning off, going off on the inside. None of the cars made contact with anything, so it's just a matter of... Oh, definitely a disappointment there for Teo Fabi, because they certainly wanted to do well here today.
Well, they really did, because they had their best finish ever in their year-long history at Nazareth a couple of weeks ago, and had really high hopes coming in here because it was their first anniversary, and they had hoped hope that they could improve on that best finishing position, but it will not be, as the Porsche and Howdy Holmes remained on the racetrack, but not under power. Meanwhile, well, of course, we mentioned that the Porsche is here at Laguna for the anniversary of their coming into IndyCar racing. It's been a very uphill battle for them, and of course, they lost their director 2 weeks ago. 1 year ago, the long-awaited Porsche IndyCar debuted in kart competition. It was an effort that had been in the planning stages for months in Germany. Quaker State would sponsor the effort, knowing that the car would experience some growing pains. The man chosen to head and develop the program was longtime Porsche prototype driver Al Holbert. He was tragically killed in a plane crash 2 weeks ago, but before that, Derek Walker had been hired from the Penske team to run the IndyCar project.
Certainly didn't foresee this situation happening. But, you know, that makes it all the more important to succeed. And, you know, we're doing it, obviously, we're doing it for Porsche, but we're proving something for Al, too. We're continuing what he started, really. So there's another reason to make it work. And sure, the responsibilities are a lot greater than I envisaged. But no one person, you know, is the sole reason for a team's success. No one company. It's a number of factors. And my main role is to unite the various people within the Porsche team and make it a success. I wanted to take the next step, if you like. I wanted a little bit more responsibility. Wanted to you know, prove to myself that, you know, I can do more than the job I was doing at Penske Racing. So you can't get that opportunity staying within a company that is structured the way Penske Racing is, and that's nothing bad about the system they have. It's a very good system, but there's only so many positions that you can fill. And going to the Porsche team, Al pretty well gave me an opportunity to grow into other areas. The very reason that Roger said he didn't want me to stay on was the very reason that it's good for Porsche that I am here. Because his logic, which is, you know, is totally the right way to think about it, if you wait till the end of the season and then restructure your team, then you start next year and you have to get the people up to speed with the new system. But if you do it now, you get a couple of races on the new management as well, so that the team would you'll be ready and used to the new organization. And likewise, the Porsche team, you know, they'll have a chance we'll get a chance to know each other and get to know what our objectives are. But that's probably the only negative of leaving Penske at this time was the critical part of the championship. I certainly didn't want to disrupt anything within the team as they're so close from another championship. It was unavoidable, really.
Al Holbert's death is a major loss to all of auto racing. He was the winningest driver in IMSA history and a 5-time IMSA champion. Prior to that, he had been successful in Can-Am competition and also drove Indy cars and occasionally NASCAR. Twice with Derek Bell, Holbert won the 24 Hours of Le Mans and the 24 Hours of Daytona in the same year. Al Holbert was a winner both on and off the track, but his much-loved IndyCar program will continue. So will his legacy, which was guided by his coach, best friend, and father, Bob. As Erie mentioned, the number 14 is being carried on the Quaker State Porsche this week in memory of Al Holbert. Teo Fabi has spun twice. He is 4 laps down to the field, but still very much in competition. There is the final lap of the pace laps. 3 warm-up laps are complete. Danny Sullivan, Mario Andretti to the outside. The final corner. They're on the pit straight. We watch for Nick Ferraro's green flag. There it is. We race at Tamiami as Danny Sullivan jumps into the lead, and already there is a problem reminiscent of the first race here. Wassell is there. The Porsche of Teo Fabi is against the wall. Another call looks to be Derek Daly's car. That 12th car is the new Rookie of the Year, John Jones. Now on the course, the yellow flags fly only at the first turn, and Denny Sullivan, and there's A.J. Foyt. How terrible that Foyt is out so early. Roberto Guerrero's car. So a number of cars out right here on the start. The very same thing that happened the first year of this race.
Paul, I think everybody would have to agree that starting it right going into turn number 1 maybe isn't such a good idea. What happens is that the radius just continually tightens up as you get into the turn, and no matter what happens, you just can't funnel all those cars in such a small place.
John Jones is out of his car. Foyt has not yet climbed out. Derek Daly is out there. Is Scott Brayton out of his car? Roberto Guerrero is out of his car. All of the drivers appear to be all right, though we haven't seen Foyt climb out just yet.
We are talking about a third of the cars being out of this race as of the first lap.
So on the start of the race, there's Roberto Guerrero sprinting across the racetrack, and he climbs over the wall. We see the cars positioned at the end of the pace lap as they come off of the last turn. The green flag is given. Now watch back in the fourth row, the green car of Teo Fabi and Bossell to the left of the screen as they touch, and then Emerson Fittipaldi gets involved as well, and all of the cars go to the wall. 8 cars actually involved in this accident. 7 cars are out of the race as a result of this crash. Let's go down to the Porsche pit and Jack Arute.
And the man that watched Rick go by was a fellow that used to work with Rick Mears at Team Penske, but he now runs Team Porsche. Derek Walker, a good run for the team and Teo Fabi this afternoon.
Yeah, it's been an excellent run so far. We've had a lot to deal with. Teo's got a clutch problem right now, so we have a real problem getting in out of the pits, but the guys are doing a fantastic job. We're really getting on with the program. I hope we can stay that way at the end.
Well, he's hoping down here, and the hopes of all of Germany, in fact, are hoping, because, you know, they're running that factory March with that Porsche, and it seems to be running quite well, gentlemen.
Well, this March chassis is so secret. There are only 2 being built for this year. This is the only one that's making its appearance here. The other is a different March chassis with Alfa Romeo. More of a development chassis from last year. This is a whole new design, and it's so secret that when you go to March, you have to have special keys and cards to get back into the rooms they're working on this.
Well, it's what you call a Porsche March operation is what it is, and the car is actually doing very good, and especially, Paul, when you recognize the car just barely got built. It's hardly had any development time, so we really have to take our hats off to them. They've done well with it.
Well, that whole team, not just the movement of Derek Walker, but the new crew chief, Peter Parrott, coming over from Rick Mears, Tony Sacali as the aerodynamicist, all helping the Porsche effort this year. Michael Andretti.
Becomes the story of the day. Sullivan is going to be passed by other people, too.
And here is a terrible disappointment. Teo Fabi is into the pits. He had done so well, qualified in 3rd position. The Quaker State team hoping for a good product here today, and now Peter Parrott and the crew pushing the car down into the pits.
Now again, Paul, these cars are new. If people are wondering why do they have problems so early on in the race, it's their new cars. This is only 2nd race of the year for them. They went from an oval track at Phoenix right here to Long Beach. They're turning to the right instead of the left all the time, and these are some of the reasons they have problems early on.
On board the session. Let's go down to the pits once again.
And Paul, with a temporary road course, you know, they use the street circuits, and it's the streets that people drive on. Well, here's what happened to Teo Fabi's car. See this stone right here? Well, it was kicked up by the front wheel of the car, and we're using Bernard Jourdain's car to illustrate this. It was kicked up and actually penetrated in through the radiator of the Porsche entry. It split the radiator open. It sent the temperatures, the water temperature that is, sky high, and now Teo Fabi's been forced to park the vehicle. Back to you.
Terrible piece of luck for Teo Fabi and that Porsche contingent, because they looked like they had a great day starting.
Well, Porsche just had Fabi just had a new daughter. He said he wanted to go home to Milan to see her early. He's going to have that chance.
These are the cars out of the race.
And certainly one of the stories we'll be covering. But there are many more and some surprises here. Let's go down the pit area. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, there have been a lot of surprises here, especially during qualifications over the last couple of days. Emerson Fittipaldi on a terrific roll was one of the strong contenders, but 2 fuel pumps going out on him forced him to settle for the outside pole. But the biggest surprise was the end of an 18-month journey by these people, Porsche, as they planked Teo Fabi and their Porsche car on the pole for the first time in history. And a man that really, some say, should take a lot of the credit for such a great accomplishment is Derek Walker, who came on board just about 8 months ago. And Derek, a lot of people said, wait for this team to come together. Now you've won a pole, but now what's more importantly is, when are you going to win a race?
Well, that's true. We're a long way. You know, we've come a long way to get to here, and there's an even bigger task ahead to win this race. But we feel we're in the best position we've ever had to win the race. We feel quite confident today.
Some people say that while the chassis works very, very well, the March chassis, that the Porsche engine is still down on horsepower. Will that be a disadvantage to you here?
I don't think it's as big as a disadvantage as people make out. We're a lot closer here than we've been. I think we've done some things since Detroit that are beginning to make a difference. So we've got a long way to go, but we're a lot closer than people would imagine.
There's some continues at the front of the field. Emerson Fittipaldi coming to the inside of Teo Fabi. Can he hold in that position? That's the new Alfa Romeo just ahead of them, and he gets past. So the lead has changed for the first time in this race. Fittipaldi gets around Teo Fabi and the Porsche, and now the Marlboro car is out in front.
Oh, he made a resounding pass there. You might have thought that he'd had a chance to come up on Guerrero and use him a little bit. There you can see he's crowding him and trying to get Guerrero's attention in his mirror so he can make a pass. But
Emerson, just when he had his opportunity, he drove right by.
Track Facts are brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. Here's Gary Gerald.
The degree of sophistication that can be found in today's IndyCar racing can be found here in the pit of Teo Fabi's Quaker State Porsche team. In a direct offshoot of the old Porsche Formula One program, a telemetry system has been incorporated here that feeds this team a wealth of information from the car every time Fabi is on the track. This is located immediately in the pit, and every time the car is out, this monitoring equipment can record 10, 12, 15 various types of functions. They utilize it primarily to watch fuel usage during the course of the race. Secondly, to troubleshoot any potential problem before it actually develops. Now, to give you an idea of some of the different functions, they keep an eye on the fuel usage. They monitor all of the various temperatures, be it oil, water, the gearbox temperatures. There's an actual temperature probe in the clutch assembly. They keep an eye on that. That's a problem they encountered a week ago at Portland and a couple of weeks ago in Detroit. They also measure turbo boost, turbo speed, RPMs, constant information coming from the car at all times, and the crew watches it very closely. It's permanently recorded at a truck that's back in the deep pit area, but they monitor this situation here. If they anticipate that there's any type of a problem, they can go to work on it while Teo is on the track. The cost, well, about $12,000 for this package right here, but of course the research and the development that went into it was much more extensive than that. This is the only team at the moment in IndyCar racing that is utilizing such a telemetry package. Danny Sullivan, of course, has been the target of a lot of speculation that's been going on. You get to the middle of the season, it's called the silly season frequently because everybody starts speculating about who's going to drive where in 1990. There have been reports that Sullivan is going to be driving for Porsche next year. Well, we thought yesterday, let's go to the source. Let's find out exactly what Danny Sullivan is thinking. Danny, a tremendous amount of speculation about your driving future. Where are you going to be in 1990? Can you shed any light on that situation?
Well, it's kind of amazing you missed 2 races and everybody says you're going here and there. I've heard all the rumors. As far as I know, I'm still going to be at Penske's. I haven't had any firm offers from anybody else, so that's where I plan to be.
Are you hoping to entertain offers?
I'm not saying anything at this time. I just plan to be there, and I'll listen to anybody, but in my mind, the way everything is, I'm going to be at Rogers. I haven't talked to anybody else.
Have you had any ongoing negotiations for next season with Roger?
Yes.
Bobby is running 8th, and now Scott Pruitt behind him running 9th. Pruitt came very close to a checkered flag at Detroit. He led with only 4 laps to go, and then finished second at Fittipaldi. Let's find out more about the Porsche racing team.
The heralded arrival of Porsche to the IndyCar ranks came at Laguna Seca in the fall of 1987, but the car's early performance was hardly encouraging. Despite the diligent efforts of veteran driver and project director Al Holbert, progress seemed to be stymied by frustration as the season ended at Miami. It was a time for patience and perseverance.
When you're starting with all new people, there's so much to learn for everybody, right from the trucks, the guys that take care of the trucks to the cars, and all the support equipment and all the home-based guys, the machinists, all the rest of it. It just takes a long time to get everybody to know their jobs and to be familiar with everything.
Through much of the 1988 season, improvement came slowly, but there were still anxious moments such as this spin and wall-banging incident at Pocono. Problems also fell on the backup car that weekend, and it was a frustrated Teo Fabi who finally tossed the wheel aside in disgust. But those frustrations paled in comparison to the stunning blow that befell the team in fall when Holbert died in a plane crash. Unknown to most, Holbert had reached agreement with Penske team manager Derek Walker to join the Porsche camp shortly before Holbert's death. For Walker, the challenge suddenly was bigger than life.
I think the most impact it had was more trying to become Al Holbert to the guys who'd really looked at him as a father figure. So I didn't try to compete with that.
But the monstrous challenge is being met, and all believe victory looms ahead.
Well, sure, there is a lot of satisfaction, but not enough yet. You know, we really want to win, and keep working very hard to get this first win.
The Porsche team won its first pole at Portland and has backed that effort with a pair of fourth-place finishes in the last 2 events.
just been times where you didn't think it was possible, for sure, especially the first year. And then this season, you know, gotten better and better at each race.
It's been a painstaking process, but it seems certain success is coming to this team. Soon, one of the grand marks of motorsport will add a victory in IndyCar competition to its long list of accomplishments.
Let's go down to Sally.
Okay, Gary Gerald was talking about rumors, and they persist at this time of the year, especially drivers changing teams. Well, here's a rumor that we found out about. It was rumored that Danny Sullivan was going to go to Porsche and that Teo Fabi was going to form his own team. Well, not so. Derek Walker tells me that he has never talked to Danny Sullivan and that Teo Fabi is expected to sign up again with him next year, at least by the Michigan race, which is only a couple of weeks away. One rumor that, however, may turn out to be true is the fact that Porsche may run 2 cars next season. They're going to try it out possibly at Laguna Seca, and if it works out well, they'll run a second car next year. Charlie?
And one of the things, of course, that we look for is the Porsche car here to come out and pop for that first win. They seem to get closer and closer, but they haven't really, Teo Fabi has not really challenged that much here.
Leader of the race under yellow is Emerson Fittipaldi. Teo Fabi is second, Rick Mears is third, and Danny Sullivan is fourth. Now, why are the cars faster this year? Well, part of the reason may now be electronic brains, computers that monitor the cars in every move and help the crew succeed. Brian Hammond reports.
IndyCar racing has gotten very sophisticated. Virtually all the teams now have onboard computer systems that measure fuel consumption, RPM, speed, various temperatures, G-loads, etc. The team pulls their car into the pits, they plug in their computer, and they download all that information to see just how well the car is running. Now, the most sophisticated computer system belongs to the Porsche team. It's a real-time telemetry system. They can monitor their driver, Teo Fabi, while he's actually on the race course. Now, that comes in most handy during the course of a race when they're monitoring fuel consumption. They can see just what kind of mileage Teo is getting, and then he can adjust the boost from inside the cockpit. IndyCar racing has become a very high-tech sport.
Teo Fabi, of course, what the computer shows, is currently running in second. And there's probably no driver in this race more capable of understanding or appreciating computer technology such as they use in his team, because he has a degree in engineering from the Institute of Technology in Milan. He's a man that flies a helicopter. So all this is very familiar to him, Paul.
Cooler.
Well, again, it goes to show you how severe the racetrack is here. The vibration, the rough racetrack is just causing a lot of damage on these cars. We just talked to Patrick and Fittipaldi's car. Same trouble they had at Michigan. You'd think they'd go back and make modifications to that car to make it a little bit stronger, knowing they had a weak link.
And Teo Fabi stalking Rick Mears, comes underneath him as they head towards turn 1.
Side by side here, this will be interesting. It's a little rough down low where Teo's at. Mears on the high side.
And Mears holds the lead.
He does. Good move.
And I thought Fabi had position on him underneath.
He did, but Rick probably had a little more horsepower, so was able, Teo jumped out in the draft, lost some of that momentum, and Rick's horsepower was able to pull him back alongside.
Are you going to play with the boost, Indy?
I'm sure the boost is all the way up in both those cars right now.
Rick Mears, his best 1989 finish. Well, he won twice, Phoenix and Milwaukee.
Rick's got 2 concerns right now. He's got Fabi in his mirror, and he's also got the thought that Emo's out with a broken suspension piece, something that he experienced at Michigan, and there's a long ways to go in this race. So Rick, he's got some serious thoughts in his mind about his car and how reliable his car will be for the finish of this race.
That was Chris Mears, Rick's wife. And Fabi continues to stalk Rick Mears.
Teo's able to close the gap back up. Teo's getting through the corners a little bit better. Rick's probably just a little bit quicker. We got slower traffic in front. Rick drops down low, and Teo goes right with him.
Mears obviously aware that he's sitting right behind him. And now they come down the front straight. Fabi tries to come. No, he's not going to.
He takes 2 peaks. He took 1 peak, jumped back, and again, just not enough momentum, not enough horsepower to help that draft get him by.
And also, here he comes underneath.
Down low.
Oh,
Rick.
he caught it napping for a moment.
Well, I don't know if Rick was napping, but he either just got out of the groove a little bit, lost the front end just a little bit, had to roll out of the throttle, and that's all Teo needed.
and he sat right underneath you. We expected to make that move going into one, and he got him coming out. Now he runs. Is that A.J. Foyt out in front of him? As he runs into some last round? No, that's Johnny Rutherford. That's Rutherford in car number 17.
I don't know if Rick's just tooling it now. He probably doesn't want to abuse his car. He's probably trying to save it for the end. He knew Teo was fast and didn't want a problem this early in the race.
And we have a lot of racing still to go. And Teo Fabi is now the leader. And, of course, he still has this pit stop to come in. But we'll take a timeout. We'll return to the Pocono 500 in a moment. Teo Fabi, the leader of the Pocono 500, is coming into the pit.
He's in hot. He locked up a tire and got the car a little sideways getting into the pits, Charlie. Again, he's locking up.
Yes.
Both fronts. He missed his pit.
He missed his pit.
He's missed his pit. Is he going back? No, they're going to pull him back, Charlie. They're going to pull him back.
And this all relates to the problem that he has been having.
He might not have any rear brakes, and that makes the fronts dominant. It locks up with just a little bit of pressure, and it's he could get a lap down. This could be tough for this team.
And meanwhile, Danny Sullivan has the lead. And Sullivan upper right, and of course Teo Fabi lower left. And this will put Teo a lap down.
But Sullivan's coming into the pit.
Sullivan is going to come in, and so it's not going to put Teo a lap down unless he can do a quick stop and get in and out and pass him in the pit.
Well, I think Teo will get out quicker, and I think he's running quicker on the racetrack, but unfortunate situation for the Porsche team.
But still, Teo Fabi is, he's got some problems.
He had the motor killed for a minute. Now he's got it fired. He's off, but so's Danny.
So is Danny Sullivan.
It'll be a drag race down the pit lane.
Sullivan, 16.5 seconds, 56 seconds for Teo Fabi, a 40-second spread.
Danny had a head of steam on Fabi coming out of the pits and got by.
And it's legal to pass down the pits.
It's illegal to pass in the pits, but I don't know if they were by the blend line. Once they get by the blend line, then you've got to follow each other out of the pits.
Behind him.
Look at Fabi lock up the brakes.
Oh, he's locking up all the way down pit row. Oh, and they waved him out. He missed his pit. They waved him out because he does not have any brakes.
That's it.
And boy, there is a big break for Michael Andretti, Danny Sullivan, and Rick Mears. 11.6 seconds.
Now let's go to the front row. Here's Jackaroo.
Paul, the pole-winning effort by Teo Fabi and the Porsche team is another milestone in their march towards their first victory ever in IndyCar competition. Now this time, as they won the pole in Portland, but this time they have scored the pole-winning position with some adversity. You see what happened in the practice session and in qualifying is Teo was involved in an altercation with Fabrizio Barbazza. They were forced to go to their backup car here. Very quickly they brought it up to speed and gathered in the pole-winning position today, so he'll start on the inside of the front row. Now, many of the drivers say that this car has finally shown its mettle at Pocono International Raceway by being able to last almost the entire 500 miles. They say, too, that because of the narrowness of this racetrack, that this should be the key contender for a trip to victory lane, and a history-making trip it would be, as Porsche has never won in World IndyCar competition before. Another third, and this man, the 8 car, Teo Fabi, has been handling traffic masterfully for the past several laps, getting past car after car and forcing Al Unser Jr. to fight even harder to try to keep with this battle for the lead. Just ahead is the Amway car. That's Scott Brayton. As Teo Fabi comes off the edge of the course trying to get past. And there is Al Unser Jr. He pulls to the inside. Now they have a drag race going. Will this be the first lead change of the race? Teo Fabi nails the throttle and is able to take the lead once again, but they were side by side for a moment.
Boy, that was really exciting. Scott Brayton obviously didn't see Teo and ran him off of the road, and he was able to maintain control, came back on, but Al Unser had the chance to get in the throttle and make the run up beside him. Teo was able to go, so that proves that the Porsche does have some strength. There we saw a little shaking of the fist from Teo Fabi.
Now Al Unser Jr. tries to come inside of Scott Brayton. Same situation as Scotty makes the car a little bit wider. That's Scotty's United car running just ahead of Al Unser Jr. And if you look a bit further, you'll see that Teo is now beginning to get away, and they're on a critical corner. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
And look at the faces along this pit wall, Paul Page. You can feel the moment inching closer. Teo Fabi, who won here in Can-Am in 1982. In 1983, 1983 is an Indy rookie out of nowhere. He won for the Forsyth brothers. 2 years ago, Porsche put its first Indy car on the track at Laguna Seca, and maybe now this is going to be the day that they've been waiting for so very, very long. And you can feel it from Derek Walker to Tony Secali to every member of this team here as they inch closer and closer, and just all but biting their fingernails. It's one of those special moments, I think, in IndyCar racing, or for that matter, in all of sports.
I'm not sure that Derek Walker will believe it if, in fact, it happens. Yesterday, when I talked to him about it, he said, well, perhaps before the season is over, but I'm not really sure. It may be happening even as we speak. Al Unser Jr. continues the chase in second place, but he is a full 10 seconds behind the leader. And what problems will this solve for that team? Well, there was conversation as recently as several weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that Porsche may not continue this effort in the Indy cars. Perhaps the new management in Stuttgart were not seeing the results that they were looking for, and it wasn't beneficial to the program. Well, the white flag comes out on the Quaker State Porsche. We'll see how beneficial it is now. Interestingly enough, yesterday Porsche said we will continue with at least a one-car effort through next year. Well, this is the reward they're about to get as Al Unser Jr. in second place. His wife Shelley, she watches from the position on the pit straight on their scoring stand. And Teo Fabi has now only to negotiate about 12 more turns ahead of him. On that long straightaway, 180 miles an hour.
I don't think there's any denying the Porsche today. They have run flawlessly. Even in their little quick pit stop they had to make at the end, it's all worked out for them, and Teo is doing a tremendous job and has a magnificent car under him.
Well, they've overcome. Remember, they had the accident in the qualifying session, cut the corner off of the car. They ran back, drug out the backup car, which is the machine he's in now, put it right back out on the circuit, got back into the qualifying, qualified the car on the pole, and then in the race itself, just a few laps ago, they didn't get a full fuel load. They had to come in for a quick splash of fuel, and in doing that, they're able to maintain the lead of the race and are now on the final lap.
There is fixing to be bedlam in the Porsche pit. He is making the last turn, Paul, coming down for the checkered flag. They are going to go crazy.
And on the pit straight, the checkered flag comes out for the Quaker State Porsche and Teo Fabi. Porsche has done it at Mid-Ohio. They have scored their first victory in the IndyCars. Derek Walker receives the congratulations from the crew. Teo Fabi begins to wave to the crowd, and the crowd is loving it. They recognize the significance of this moment. There is now another engine, another combination in the IndyCars. This series continues its excitement. Tony Secali in the blue sweater, one of the aerodynamicists on the car, has helped make this car go so quickly. Teo Fabi has scored his first victory in the IndyCar since 1983.
And they only have tonight to be able to celebrate, because I can assure you they will be flat out ready for getting for the race next weekend, which is doesn't give them much time to celebrate, but they'll probably be thinking, let's go after number 2.
Teo Fabi taking the helmet off, getting the congratulations of his entire crew here. History has been made at Mid-Ohio Racecourse, where Fabi has come home victorious for the first time with Porsche power. Teo, congratulations. A fine ride of historic proportions.
Thank you. I think it was a very good race. Very difficult at the end because we have to make an extra stop, but car ran very well.
When you had to come in for that final stop because you didn't take the full load of fuel, did you ever have any doubts that you were maybe going to lose the lead?
Well, for sure, when they told me I had to come in another time, I said, well, the race is lost, but you know, I kept pushing, and I was able to gain 20 seconds on Al Jr., which were enough to make an extra stop.
Well, he is victorious for the first time with Porsche power. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Around Emo. Emo tries to shake the car back and forth as he continues to lose positions coming down the hill. Teo Fabi trying to get Bobby Rahal. Boy, take a look at that one.
Man, that was a classic block if I ever saw one. He pulled right in front of him.
Little fight for third place there as Bobby Rahal will finish it in third. Al Unser Jr. wins, followed by Sullivan, and look at that. Boy, there's some anger there. Al Unser Jr. wins, Danny Sullivan second, Bobby Rahal third, and Teo Fabi fourth in the Marlboro Challenge.
Now, there's been a lot of other action here at Laguna Seca this weekend, namely in the Marlboro Challenge. And for some of the repercussions that came from a late race, post-race action, let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Jack, the most noteworthy incident involved two drivers who've had great success in this race course. Bobby Rahal, four-time winner. Teo Fabi, a winner in his rookie IndyCar season. It came on the last lap of the Marlboro Challenge. Coming to the checkered flag, Rahal, nursing an ailing engine, held off Fabi for third place. Teo burst on by. As they got to turn 2, Teo dramatically slowed. He was rear-ended hard by Rahal. Fortunately, minor damage, no injuries, but kart officials were not happy. They have fined both drivers substantially, and they placed Teo Fabi on a 6-race probation through the start of the 1990 racing season, meaning that if there's a reoccurrence of such incidents, he could be subject to further disciplinary action, either a stiffer fine or possibly even a suspension. Something that both drivers will have to keep in mind now as we start this event. And ironically, Rahal starts inside row 3, and right in front of him is Teo Fabi inside row 2.
Here's the number 8 Quaker State Porsche. The Porsche machine with its first win this season. One of the fascinating cars on the IndyCar circuit. Jack Arute took a look.
Porsche's IndyCar effort mates a specifically designed March chassis with their highly touted Porsche IndyCar engine. Now, when you take a look at the chassis itself coming from March, it's flatter and wider across the nose than its Lola counterpart. This allows the air to run up along a very small windscreen and back over the driver's head. Now, when we get back to the Motronics engine management system, which is unique to Porsche's IndyCar effort, you notice it's located here, with wires running back to the engine and monitoring all the functions and dictating just what the fuel mix and spark mixture should be on the engine. These wires here may look superfluous, but they're extremely important for the real-time telemetry which is sent out by this team back to pit road during the course of an event. We've talked a lot about it on ESPN, and some say it gives them just a slight competitive edge over some of their counterparts in IndyCar competition. The horsepower rating for this combination, well, it's pegged right at about 720 horses.
The Porsche IndyCar, Teo Fabi at the wheel, and by the way, he has re-signed with Porsche for another year in the IndyCars, so they've got their team all set for 1990. Back at Laguna Seca, just moments ago, Teo Fabi was on the course in pursuit, running in 8th place, when all of a sudden he lost control. Watch that green and white car coming off of the corner, and he caught the wall on the right side real hard. The wing came off of the car, severe damage to the back end, and you can see Teo is slumped over in the cockpit. The corner workers, the course marshals, ever present right there, right on top of the car. Here comes the Horton safety team, a fireman, extrication expert, and a doctor on that car as Teo Fabi, that's one of the doctors with the blue stripes on his arm, right there at the car.
Boy, he took a shot, Paul. When you back one in like that, your tendency is to want to hump up, to get pulled down, to go to the basement, and when it hits the wall, there's no way you can stay in that position, and it just slams your head back into the back of the headrest, and he got his bell rung pretty good. Let's hope it's not real serious.
Horton safety team, they call for a cervical collar to put around his neck. Here it is in slow motion, Johnny.
Yeah, it looks like he just got to the inside, dropped the left rear wheel off into the dirt, which turned him loose. The car came around, you see it, it's going backwards there, slams into the wall very hard, taking the rear wing off, knocking the rear wheels askew, and he slides back out on the track to a stop. Quite a shot.
He was tucked up right behind Fittipaldi. You think he lost aerodynamics?
I don't think so. They're not fast enough there to really, I would think, to really have a problem. I think he just was pushing so hard through there that when he got that wheel off, there was no traction, and so the car let go and went around.
They work with Teo Fabi. Not a routine situation at this point. Under full course yellow once again. They have taken Teo's helmet off. Full course caution once again because of the accident involving Teo Fabi. Here's Gary Gerald.
Paul, we're just standing down here amidst a very concerned crew. They want information. Of course, they have virtually nothing at this standpoint. Derek Walker is here, and I know that this is a most disappointing way to have your season come to an end, and I know you're concerned for your driver.
Sure we are. We're just anxious to hear how he is.
Well, we will try to relay any information that we hear. I know that they know virtually nothing more. And, Paul, you probably have more information because you, of course, have had the video and you've seen what's happened. We'll throw it right back to you.
Well, Gary, we can tell you so you can relay to Derek that the both Horton safety team vehicles are right there. You can't ask for a better rescue effort. Teo Fabi is still in the car, and they continue to work with him while the PPG pace car brings the field around with Al Unser Jr. as the leader under yellow. And Gary Gerald just may have it, Gary.
Yes, indeed, Paul. We're in a pit adjacent to little Al Unser now vacated, of course, following the injury, but encouraging news for Teo. They are now transporting him to Monterey Peninsula Community Hospital. It is reported from the Horton Safety Unit, a slight concussion. He is conscious. They'll take him in for further observation. That follows up that report from Dr. Phelan. He is in stable condition. Certainly encouraging news, Paul.
Well, we're glad to hear that. Of course, we hate it when any driver is involved. There's a shot of Teo Fabi. Very likable young Italian. And
Gary? We're at row 7 now. Inside, car number 4, Teo Fabi, the little Italian who last year made such a great ride at Mid-Ohio to get Quaker State Porsche's first win. They'd hoped to have a 1990 chassis available, but they ran into some difficulties, had to rebuild the car. So they've had to go to the 89 March chassis. They're a little disappointed in that respect. They haven't had the test time that they'd hoped to have. They're starting further back in the grid than they had hoped. They go inside in row number 7. Alongside in the 8th row is John Andretti. John, a new teammate for Teo Fabi and the Porsche Quaker State team. Again, this is an 89 Porsche chassis, and John Andretti is driving here for the first time today. Paul?
Taking a look at looking at their own tactic. The 41 car is John Andretti. He runs in 8th place right now.
I think there's been more game planning going into this race than we normally have. And think about all the lack of practice during the month of May. I still think that's having a factor on the race.
This is a pretty good run for John Andretti, who got the ride really just before the start of the season when he finally was able to move in this car and Porsche decided to field 2 cars.
Often he's been the fastest on the team, and often he's been one of the fastest guys in the practice here at the Speedway.
Average speed of the race thus far, 168.6 miles an hour, but Fittipaldi has got the speed of his car up, averaging about 217 miles an hour each lap.
His last lap, for example, was 218 and a half.
This IndyCar Track Fact is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. Here's Jerry Punch.
Innovation is an everyday occurrence in IndyCar racing. What may look like a normal IndyCar that fosters Quaker State Porsche is quite radically different from 1990. Look, externally, you won't see any changes, but we remove the engine cover, and you'll see quite a difference here in this chassis design for 1990. Now, behind the rear axle, normally you would see the transmission in a Penske or possibly a Lola. Not the case here. The transmission has actually been moved in front of the half shafts up in this section right here. Well, that's normally where the turbocharger would lie. Where's the turbocharger? Well, it's been moved up in the front of the engine compartment, just behind the driver, back in this section here, which of course puts more weight toward the center of the car and will help with handling. Also a major difference for this 1990 March chassis, the exhaust headers come forward. Rather than going backward as you see in the Lolas and Penske's, they come forward, come under here, and this is the exhaust port right here. Well, therein lies a problem. Somewhat of a growing pain for the 1990 March. Last week at Detroit, this exhaust header here sent so much heat out against these fuel lines it caused vaporization of fuel and thus fuel starvation, eliminating both Teo Fabi and John Andretti from the field. Now they've had their growing pains for 1990, but a radically different design in this March 90 chassis, and it's going to work sooner or later here for Derek Walker and the team.
One of the more technically advanced cars we have on the circuit at the moment. Actually, that was the turbo intake. The exhaust outlet is on the other side. There are an inlet and an outlet on each side of that car.
The fight on the cool change in the rules for the next couple of years, in fact. But next year, a full carbon fiber tub will be allowed.
It's amazing, really, the trouble that the Porsche IndyCar team had when their carbon car was disqualified from being able to be used for this year. And what Robin Hurd told me, what that did was instantly add 40 pounds of weight to the car and take away 2 months of testing. That is why they feel they're not competitive right now.
On board with third run together as well, Teo Fabi and John Andretti on the circuit. They're having a good day. Of course, they came to this race feeling this was the first time this season that they were really able to unload the car and go racing. There are those team cars, Porsche powered, finally coming online. I'm sure Derek Walker and his Porsche crew are very happy with that.
Fabi looks as if he was in trouble there. John Andretti pulled out and shot by him. In fact, Fabi is in trouble, pulls off. We were just about to say how reliable these two cars were, and then Fabi goes and blows the theory and pulls off the road.
Well, Teo Fabi was running in 6th place. John Andretti is running in 8th place behind Lyondike. So now the hopes are pinned on John Andretti. And here is Mark.
With Johnny Rutherford, Sally Larvik, and Brian Hammonds, this is Don Cricky back at the 1990 Meadowlands Grand Prix. As right now, Teo Fabi is in the lead. He did not pit during an extended yellow caution flag. They're back under the green flag now, running hard. Teo Fabi and John Andretti running 1-2 in Porsches in the blue cars. Scott Drayton is running third. Mario Andretti and Michael Andretti running 1 and 2. Right now attending to the car of Willie T. Ribbs in the pit area as we have a battle for the lead between the two Porsche cars.
That was not a very prudent move on John Andretti's part. He's being passed now by Michael Andretti, so Cousins going after it there, but he tried on the outside of Teo, and in that corner, that's not really the way to do it.
As the green flag is out, lap 50 of this 150-lap Meadowlands Grand Prix.
See Michael Andretti making the pass on the lead there. Michael takes the lead back from Teo Fabi.
Michael Andretti, of course, is a fresh load of fuel. During the first caution, it was 8 laps in duration. The Porsches, Fabi and John Andretti, did not come into pit. They still the pits. Here's Gary Gerald.
Paul, the intensity of the early racing has had an effect on Teo Fabi. Sam indicated they had a vibration in the morning practice session. That's not the problem now. They brought him in for 2 pit stops. They've made wing adjustments both times. They also are trying to change the ride heights, and the conversations continues with team manager Derek Walker. Fabi, who was second here a year ago, off to a very disappointing start today.
A lot of speculation continuing about what will happen within that Porsche team. An announcement here that Jim Hall will be back, the owner that took Johnny Rutherford to the win at the Indianapolis 500. He'll be back next year as a car owner, and he will have Chevrolet power for his machine. That part of the announcement too. And Jim Hall, they say, is talking with Teo Fabi to be the driver. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Running through, of course, these are the first racing laps for the Indy cars on a tight, twisting, and very narrow circuit.
Teo Fabi knows that this team that he's driving for now will probably be dissolving at the end of the year, and thus his future too is uncertain. He's 35 years old. He's talked of retirement. Today means a lot to him.
Teo Fabi, the pole sitter, chased by Al Unser Jr. Well, you're looking for Mario's car.
Now look how close they get right there.
Whoa, close is more than what they got.
It may not have been a contact, but if it wasn't, it was so close it might as well been.
Oh, look at the brakes line up and he comes off the course. The brakes fail for Teo Fabi and he goes into the tire barrier.
Now what happened there is he locked his front brakes, Paul. He had no way. You have to have, as deep as they drive in these turns, you have to have all 4 wheels working equal. Now something happened to Fabi's rear brakes. He only had front ones. It means he has no steering and no way to stop.
The crews are right there with Teo, and he's obviously talking to them, so it's assumed that he's okay.
They went into a tire barrier, which is certainly the nicest of all the barriers.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Teo Fabi's entire crew, the only indication they've got of the condition of their driver is by watching a small television monitor. Due to the extensive sellout here, they've lifted the black for ABC Sports coverage today, and they are watching the replay as Teo Fabi went down into turn number 1, locking the brakes up. Let's see if we can get a word with Derek Walker, who calls the shots. Derek, your first look at this crash, your impressions?
Well, I don't know. It's difficult to say. It looks like a little bit of a braking problem. We don't know. It's difficult to say, really.
Have you talked to Teo on the radio?
No, not yet.
Well, as we said, their only indication of what's going on down in turn number 1 is by our coverage in turn number 1 on ABC.
So the yellow comes out at the start-finish line. We'll take a look at this situation. Bobby Unser from the view that Mario Andretti had running in second place.
You can just watch the front tire just light up. He hits the brakes, he lets off a little bit. He made an attempt to turn right here where Mario is. He made an attempt to turn there, but without traction, he has to stop. He can't turn.
And don't think for a split second Mario isn't thinking to himself, gotcha, because he applied the pressure relentlessly. He forced Teo to brake later than Teo wanted to, and boy, that's the nicest way to take the lead.
You can just see the amount of safety that there is here at Denver. He slowed down
behind. There's not much Danny's going to do. They'll keep an eye on him. You know, see how close he's doing, see how much he's catching.
There is John Andretti coming past Rick Mears, or at least giving it a shot, though he couldn't get the job done as Rick slams the door in a battle for 5th place. John Andretti, another one of those who really has something to prove, because if the rumor comes true, and it seems like it will, that the Porsche effort is done at the end of this year, then John Andretti has no place to go once again. So he would like to display strong if he can.
He needs to run real strong here. You know, the rest of the season long, he needs to end up somewhere else. The only ride's really opening that we know of next year is one with Hall, but there's 4 or 5 good drivers open for that slot. So it should be really interesting to see what happens.
At the back of that car, as this fight is between Bobby Rahal, who currently runs in 7th place. He's being chased by Teo Fabi, the Foster's Porsche, right behind him.
This is the battle of the race right now, because Rahal has been trying everything possible to get Fabi off his tail, and Fabi looking to go to the outside, down the inside.
Whoa, what a maneuver as Fabi comes in, locks his brakes, gets the back end loose, takes Rahal off as well.
A very, very brave move by Teo Fabi that didn't quite come off and managed to take both cars off the racetrack completely. Rahal in the mud, trying to keep the momentum going to get back on the racing line.
Well, that's exactly what he was thinking. It's like if you get off the road in the winter, you want to try and keep it rolling until you can get it back on dry pavement. Rahal did it, but Fabi came back on the course as well, maintained their same relative positions.
Same position, but most unusual lines they took for that last 2 corners.
What a spectacular move by Fabi, though, as he came by, and then you saw there was just enough moisture to lock up one of the tires.
That's what we mentioned earlier on. As soon as you move offline, it's a lot more slippery. That's where Fabi got down and got it way, way too sideways.
Another car off the edge of the course there, as the fight continues between Teo Fabi and Bobby Rahal for 7th place, and Teo is right back up there as they come onto the pit straight, charging once again. It's a nice sweeping turn to the left here. Not a real good passing position, but a great position to set up because you're running into a very definite braking maneuver just ahead.
Fabi is the faster car, but Rahal is very difficult to get by. Rahal protects his line, comes down the inside. Now Fabi tries to go around the outside again.
So Teo Fabi sits to the high side. Can't get past Rahal there, but very definitely got into the corner faster and maintained faster speed throughout the corner. It was just Rahal that had the better line. Now the fastest section of the course.
This is the type of racing you see on oval tracks when people go inside or outside.
Fabi tries it again to the inside. Didn't work last lap. This time he gets the job done and is past Rahal. Maintains control of the car out of the corner. Rahal tries a different line to the outside. Remember Bobby Rahal, this used to be his home course. There's the other Porsche. That's John Andretti sideways on the circuit. This, when Rahal was racing for True Sports, they did all of their testing here. Rahal probably has thousands of more miles than any other driver on this circuit, so he knows how the circuit changes and how he can take advantage of it.
There was a big cheer for Fabi down at the end of that straight when he finally got the job accomplished, but Fabi now runs away from Rahal.
Continues for 3rd place. Let's go down to the pits and a report from Gary Gerald.
Paul, just moments ago, Teo Fabi was reported that he may have lost a wheel nut on the course. He got off the circuit, came to the pits. Teo immediately unhooked the wheel, slammed it down, jumped out of the car, disappeared over our shoulder back to the Porsche trailers. I have never seen Teo Fabi show as much emotion and frustration. There is damage now to the suspension as a result of that excursion off the course. It's been such a tough season for the Porsche team. As we go down pit road now to our colleague Lynn St. James.
One of the tearaways off of his helmet. Under the heading of what might have been, a couple of years ago, Roy Winkleman said he was going to come to the Indy cars with a Lotus. And Al Unser Jr. was scheduled to be the driver. Now, that never happened, but we're hearing that that Winkleman is in fact coming back. He's asked for some documents for next year with CART.
That project that he was to put together with Lotus was probably one of the most exciting new projects that would have hit the tracks in IndyCar racing. The car was actually to be built by Lotus in England. It was constructed. It was a real car, engine, everything, a full package, ready to go. It sat in the shops over in England. The finance or whatever happened did not come together. In fact, I believe that was the first of the all-carbon fiber monocoques.
Exactly.
That was the problem, I believe, in debuting that car, because that was technically illegal at the time in car, but no longer is, as we know from the ruling for next year.
Well, in fact, wrong up through this year, and they say that that is, in fact, what has affected Porsche's situation. They had an all-carbon fiber coming into the season, and then they said, nope, you can't run that, and that put them behind the timeline a bit.
Now behind mirrors is Teo Fabi and Emerson Fittipaldi. That number 4 car of Teo Fabi's, the Porsche, of course, making its last appearance in the IndyCar today as he tries to pursue the man who carries the number 1 for the last time this season, the 1989 champion, Emerson Fittipaldi. There's Teo Fabi. Porsche has announced they will concentrate now on on other efforts for next year, more specifically Formula One, and the IndyCar effort will cease. So what happens to Teo Fabi? He wants to drive in an IndyCar. He wants to win the Indianapolis 500. So he's certainly shopping around. At this time, there's no definitive word on where Teo will be next season.
Wherever Teo will go, I know where these cars will go. They will end up in a museum, which is a great shame, really, because this is one of the radical designs that we've seen in IndyCar racing, with the turbocharger being ahead of the engine, which is most unusual, and the gear cluster being ahead of the rear drive shaft. The reason they do this is for weight distribution, but this car is on its way to a museum.
And right behind Teo is his teammate John Andretti, who will be going to Hall VDS next year. A good ride for him. And we mentioned that John Paul Jr., the winner of the 1983 Michigan 500. He passed Mears on the very last lap. Let's go to Rick Gerald, or Gary Gerald.
Well, there's a good deal of poignancy in the Porsche pit this weekend, because we all remember it was just 3 years ago at this time when Al Unser Sr. rolled the first wheel for Porsche in IndyCar competition. And they built the program despite the tragic loss, of course, of their leader in the plane crash, Al Holbert, a couple of years back, and Derek Walker stepped in and they won at Mid-Ohio last year with Teo Fabi. Today, Teo runs 7th. His teammate John Andretti is 8th in their final ride for Porsche. The emotion of this weekend, they're trying to be upbeat. They're trying not to get them down, but you can feel it in this pit, because this is the last time that we're going to have an opportunity to see that fabled Porsche logo in IndyCar competition in the near future. We certainly wish all of them well, and they'll indeed be sorely missed, because they've been a grand group of people to work with in the competition in the last 3 seasons.
They have been worthy competitors. There is no question about it. Michael Andretti.